we're going to have our conversation. Let's touch base. Conversation, in line with, the essence of closeness, slowing down, a slower midweek engagement and conversations that are real and live music. So, yeah, if you want to talk, don't. I was going to say talk outside, but, you're missing out on the good stuff. Yeah. What else? Oh, if you want to place an order once we start the panels, just go to the side, and then the gentleman at the bar will help you out from there. But this part in the front is just for the conversation. But yeah, we are Your Weekly Touch-Up. You can find us on Instagram at Your Weekly Touch-Up. There's a link in our bio. Some of you used it to RSVP. But there's another link there that allows you to put us on. If you've got artists, friends that are really great that fit our format. So, we put you guys on every Wednesday. So, wouldn't be mad if you guys put us on. Yeah, and, just join our community, stay online. We announce new acts every single week. This is officially Your Weekly Touch-Up Week 106. Make some noise. So that's 106 weeks of live music every single Wednesday. We're the normal team. My name is Bailwanster. In front of me is Elder Third. Make some noise for Elder Third. And then make some noise for Amongst the People I Know. Every Wednesday. So thanks for joining us, guys. We introduced over the last 5 weeks this new format called Let's Touch Base. A new format that allows us to have meaningful conversations about, the business of our artistry, the industry in general. And we're always so blessed and honored to have some industry experts in attendance, just to share this information with everybody who's here tonight. Some of you are going to hit our stage at some point. Some of you have, and you still have that return guest card that you need to cash in. So, you can use this information and see how it informs your next trajectory. So, without further ado, we've got some incredible panelists, subject matter experts, industry experts with a deep expertise in the conversation that we're going to have. So listen attentively, brew up that question. We'll open up the floor at the end. My name is still Bailwanster, but today is not about me. Today is about how the landscape of music is constantly shifting, and so are the roles that guide it. This week's conversation brings together seasoned professionals who've worked within major labels, independent powerhouses, and innovative distribution companies. Together, we'll explore what sustainability looks like for the alternative artist today, what development and support truly means in our context, and how to build the kind of career, scene, and infrastructure you wish existed. Tonight's topic is the infrastructure we wish existed. And the people who are going to be on our panel have done so much time within the industry. They've entered in various phases, and they're going to speak to what it looks like now, what it looked like before, and some of the things that they would change in favor of maybe artists first. I mean, by virtue of them being here, we know they're not assholes, so they're definitely thinking about us, and we're grateful. So, our first guest, with nearly 2 decades of experience at the intersection of music, tech, and media across Africa, Wendy is a powerhouse in artist development and market expansion. Previously, in fact, it's been a day now? Previously, the regional manager for Africa at Ditto Music, she has led groundbreaking campaigns, DSP partnerships, and strategies for artists like Monaki, Easy Freak, and Lord Kess. From her early days breaking Taylor Swift and Justin Bieber at Universal Music to innovating playlist tech at labs.fm and shaping the Opikopi Festival, Wendy's work consistently centers artists while scaling global ambition. Ladies and gentlemen, and everybody in between, make some noise for Wendy. Thank you. That is yours. I'll just leave it here. Are you good? Fantastic.
Thank you for that glowing introduction. Goodness
Oh,
gracious.
of course. I always tell people that I will find you if I need you, and I will find your bio, I will find your portfolio, and you'll hear stuff you might have not heard in a while on this here platform of ours. So thank you for joining us. Thank you for being easy to find. Thank you for responding so swiftly. I was very grateful.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a huge pleasure. Guys, thank you for listening to, I don't know, whatever I'm going to say.
Let's go. So our next guest, I got to formally meet her just now, and I was excited. And thanks, Bleed, for the through ball. Thokozile, Dlamini, is a multi-hyphenate music professional with over a decade of experience across Johannesburg, Lagos, London, and LA. Currently a creative producer at Wholesome Baddie, her own company. Right? Yeah? Yeah! I love it! She has previously led editorial and label relations at Apple Music, held A&R and creative strategy roles at Universal Music and Empire Africa, and co-produced the SA edition of Imela Sound System. She's deeply passionate about market strategy, artist empowerment, and the cultural resonance of campaigns that truly land. Make some noise, ladies and gentlemen, and everybody in between for Thokozile Dlamini. That is yours. How are you? Thank you. No, thank you. Can someone, yes, please, we need it. So yeah, guys, these are our experts for the evening.
Yeah.
They're human beings, which is always exciting to see. It's very affirming when you consider how navigating the music industry has been for a lot of us, bumping into emails that are bouncing or info at, not really going to a real human. And I guess seeing Wendy and Thokozile is really exciting, as people who are often on the other side of these emails or on the other side of these structures. So yeah, make some noise for them one more time. All right, so it's just conversation. We are very grateful for honesty in whatever capacity, but it's just, it's really about empathy. This whole platform of ours, these information exchanges are often not too accessible for a lot of us, but we brought you guys home, so welcome home. I'll ask my first question to you, Thokozile. You've worked closely with artists, distributors, and labels. What's one common mistake you see young artists making in how they approach their careers?
I guess just not having direction. It sounds really silly, but that is the truth. I think, I've had this conversation with Bekker before, but there's this great book called Music Marketing for the Independent Musician. It's written by this man called Bobby Borg, who's my lecturer, ironically. But essentially, what it does is it runs you through what a label would do if they had you as their artist. And I think it's really important for musicians to work through that in their mind so that they have direction about where they want to go. So I think one of the things that it says to you is like, how famous do you want to be? And I think, everyone at the beginning is like, I want to be Beyonce. Yeah, but there's a trade-off that you have if you want to be Beyonce. And then who is your audience? It sounds really silly, but like very simple questions that I think you get so wrapped up in, I just want to create music and I want everybody to feel me and like I want to do cool things, that you forget to ask very basic questions. Your team forgets to ask very basic questions. And then the problem is you find somebody who is, for example, very, very talented, they're very beautiful, they have a great voice, but there's nothing interesting about them. It sounds horrible, but it's the truth. But like there's nothing that would make anybody want to engage with you outside of you just being cute. And you have to ask yourself, like, okay, so if my audience is 20-year-old kids who like listening to alternative music, what are 20-year-olds who are listening to alternative kids doing? So if they're spending their weekends, I don't know, like at a mosh pit, or they're out going to parks and whatever, why are you activating at a coffee shop? Like, do you get what I mean? And I think it's just simple things like that where you're not sure about where you're going and what you're doing. So the music is not really ever the issue, I find. Obviously, everything can be touched up a little bit, but it's more that there's no direction in what you're trying to accomplish in a stepwise manner. Like, it's really good to have big plans and big goals, but then what is the practical what am I trying to achieve in 6 months? Like, what am I trying to achieve in a year? Even if it's just you doubling the amount of people that's listening to your music, that's a good goal. You get what I mean? And I think that going through the motion about learning about your industry, I think is also very important, because I think that that's where a lot of people make a lot of mistakes. And I think from bad deals to you also just not thinking properly, truthfully, or being arrogant or whatever. But like learning about your industry, understand, well, why did this person end up here? Why did that person end up there? And just asking yourself questions. I'm not saying you need to turn into a music investigative journalist, but like just ask yourself simple questions. Like I remember when I first started out, when I was like 17, I would just ask, like, how did this person get their job? You know, like, or why did that person sign to that label? And I would ask myself these questions and then be like, okay, well, if all of the artists that I like tend to be in magazines like this, that's the magazine that I need to see myself in. And yeah, just small things like that. I think that a lot of artists just don't think about that. I think they get very tied up in the creation process of music, that the practical side of, okay, how do I make this a career is gone. And if you're not able to do that, you need to find somebody who can do that for you.
So the rule is when our panelists like really snap, one round of applause. So you'll choose when you give it to them. They might look at you in that way and like, hey, that slapped, and then you give it to them. But thank you so much, Thoko. While I still have you, and Wendy, you can chime in here. This is just something that came up in your answer. I have this belief that the modern day artist is the artist entrepreneur, right? This being an artist who is aware about the business of their industry. There's a lot of artists, though, today who would much rather be the artist. You know, maybe they've been doing music for the longest time, and the business aspects of it often feel like they take away from the art. And it's a little archaic in my mind, but based on everything you said, if you could just maybe speak to that, and then Wendy, if there's any thoughts on your side, you can chime in. But the artist entrepreneur as the modern day artist, there are some who intentionally don't want to deal with the business, but then who's going to do it is where my mind goes. Thoughts?
Personally,
Yeah.
Not everybody shares this opinion. I don't think the artist of today has the luxury to not learn about the side of music. Again, my opinion. I just think that even if you are not making particular choices, you still need to be educated about the choices that somebody is making for you. You know, I always say to people, the worst mistake that you can make, or like a bad contract, is every contract is not great. Like, honestly, whoever's giving you the contract, it's in their favor. But what you need to ask yourself is, what am I getting out of this for where I want to go? And I think that a lot of the time you're not able to make that. Yeah, you're not able to make that distinction if you don't know anything, truthfully. And I think that unless you have like a really good manager, person, best friend, uncle, auntie, cousin, who can ride and die for you, and you know that you can trust and put everything into there, I think it's a very dangerous place to put yourself in, to just be like, I just want to create.
Oh, thank you for that. Wendy?
I completely agree. And also, Thoko said some amazing things in her first answer. I mean, if we take it back to the fact that music is art, right? How many fine artists do you guys know? How many dancers do you guys know that make an absolute killing and make a good living from being an artist? So I think, from that point of view, we can say that, yeah, for sure, music is art, but it's also the most popular of arts. And if you're going to make a success, if you're going to make money out of it, then you need to look at it like any other job. Now, how do you reconcile that within your mind as a creative? You need to, the one thing that I always tell my artists is that, go easy on yourself, have two hats. Have your creative hat, maybe it's your warm beanie, you're on the inside, you are pouring your heart and soul into your creative art. And then you go and you put on, I don't know, whether it's your baseball cap or whether it's your, like your massive ass sun hat. I don't know, but put yourself in a different headspace, because then you're looking at your creation as a product. And that's not evil, it's not bad. It means that you're going to be able to feed yourself and your family. And unless you're able to do that, really what you've got is a hobby.
Simply put. Yeah. Oh, that was beautiful, because it's so true, and I very much appreciate how informed the opinions are. Granted, you did mention, Toko, that these are your opinions. I called you Toko. Don't ask where I learned that. Let's go. I like how it's not sugar coated. If you're not trying to monetize it, then it's a hobby. And I like to say sometimes your life has to depend on it. Where you have no choice but to make this thing make sense. So, Wendy, I want to speak to you about your various hats that you've worn. Right, your most recent being in distribution. From major label experiences to your role at Ditto Music. What's the biggest mindset shift independent artists need when moving from DIY to distribution?
Okay, so you touched on contracts. Just that you guys know, DIY is distribution. So these days, whenever it's social media as well. Whenever they update their terms of service, whenever you log into CD Baby or DistroKid or Ditto or whatever, that pop-up that says like, yes, I've got the rights to this, that's a contract. It's a mini contract. It's a short-term contract that you're signing to say you are licensing these rights to this company, a distributor, to put your music on Apple Music and Spotify, etc., etc. So what you've got there is distribution. And then the next step up from that is label services. And a couple of companies offer that. Ditto is one of them. But also, it's kind of like people don't see them as separate companies, but there's TuneCore and Believe, which is the same company, but TuneCore is the DIY distribution and Believe is the label services division. And essentially what that means is that instead of you maybe having your manager and a data person or an analyst and maybe someone else handling what is the lots of work that goes into pushing your music from a business perspective, you might have a label services team that a company provides to you. But your team could likely also do that. There are some tools and some things that only label services company and majors have access to. But, those aren't the be-all and end-all. In this industry, there's many ways to skin a cat. And then, obviously, there is, at the top end, there's signing to a major. But, these days, there are so many different types of deals. They come...
Hey.
Thank you. And the space between them is really, like... Artists like Chance the Rapper, as an example, has label services. He's not on a major label deal. A company like Maven Records, they were doing straight up DIY distribution, paying their yearly fee, but they had a big ass building in Lagos. So they had all of those people in-house. There are so many different ways you can do a structure. A band like Metallica, for example, has got a whole building and they're signed to a major. So there's so many different ways that you, obviously I'm speaking of the higher end, the big bands, but there's so many different ways for you to do this thing, to do this music thing. That's part of the cool things, right? Is that there's no rules in this business. You just kind of, it's the biggest hassle. You've got to work out what works for you and make that work. It's a bit vague, but...
No, it makes sense. I think I want to give that one. I want to give that one of those. Thokozile, you're also someone who's had multiple hats from your time at Apple Music, Universal, now Empire Africa. I think.
I consulted Empire.
Okay, cool. There we go. Okay. Hey, LinkedIn's a liar. I'm joking. No, we're good. Okay, no, I'm just so. I mean, also someone who's had multiple hats on. I'm curious about how all these different experiences and these different roles. When you look at the how do I put this? Often it's said that the music industry is for the music industry and not necessarily the artists. And this panel is about the infrastructure we wish existed to give artists a better fighting chance. What's maybe one or two things you would change from the different viewpoints you've had?
That was not the question you sent me, but
Gotcha.
What would I change? I think Wendy touched on this a bit earlier, is that ultimately it's the music business. It's a business. These people are not your friends. I wish I could say that in like capital letters. Like, these people are not your friends. And so I think that a lot of the change that needs to happen needs to be on the end of the artist, in their view of what they're walking into. Like, ultimately, like if you go into the bank and you don't have money and the bank has money, you're not really trying to bargain with the bank about how you're getting the money. I think it's more to be informed about how to work the system to your advantage, is I guess what Wendy was saying. Like, and I think it's understanding that, learn to see how people have done this. Talent doesn't mean much, which is, again, sorry. But it's the truth. Talent doesn't mean much. And I think that the moment that you as a musician, producer, engineer, whoever, understands that, and then you start asking yourself the hard questions of, okay, how does this actually work? The trajectory of your career will change. I promise you. I had the same question with myself. Like, when I was living in LA, I was working at the Grammy Museum, I was working at a studio, I was doing backgrounds, I was everywhere, trust and believe. And I was making good money and it was great, but I think the why I ended up having that mentality was because the dean of my school sat me down and she was like, do you want to be broke? And I was like, obviously not. And she was just like, I get 7 checks. I get a check from being a vocal coach on American Idol. I get a check from my own music. I get what's that other show? X Factor, that one. She was just like, I do vocal harmonies, I do private lessons. And she's just naming all of these ways that she's getting checks every month. And I was just like, damn, I have no checks. And I literally sat there and I was like, this is crazy. And I went home that day and I thought about my life and where I want to go. And I was like, do I want to be the struggling musician for 4 years? No, I'm too bougie for that. So how do I then manage the situation so that I can still stay within music? And that was a shift for me. The industry didn't change. I changed my perception. And I said to myself, well, if I'm gonna get a job, the job that I get has to be in music. I will force myself to find something and I will make it work. And then so that if I don't get like an accounting job and then I'm like, oh, this money is good. I don't want to leave this. And that's how I maneuvered my way through there, and with sincerity. And I think, repeat your question again for the second part.
Oh, no. I think you very much. Yeah, what would you change? But you.
I don't. I mean, obviously, I would love and hope and wish for people to not be vultures. But again, it's a business. People want to make money. Yeah. Like, let's just be realistic about it. So I think a lot of the change has to come from you, the artist, that you have to decide that this is the way that I want to navigate myself through this. I'm not going to put myself in these rooms. Or I'm going to do this. This is the way that I'm going to approach that. I think that it's very dangerous to sit at home and hope and wish that the executive team who's getting a check, regardless of whether you sell or not, is going to change. They're fine. Trust and believe. They're enjoying themselves. Like, you are the one who's suffering. And I think that nothing will change in your progression if there's not a mentality shift within you.
No, thank you for that. Thank you for that. I really like that, you know, it's artist facing the whole responsibility of, you know, getting involved in the music industry. You know, I think a lot of the time within the industry, the people in the industry don't really see the artists as partners because there's this weird barrier where people would rather speak to the managers, understandably so, but there's a language that they don't grasp about the business of the artistry, which should make them seen differently by people working within the music industry. So I do agree that it's on the artists. Wendy, I'm curious, in a similar vein, as far as questions I didn't send you, I wanted to know, what does leverage look like from an industry perspective? Like if an artist comes through wanting to have certain conversations, and maybe they want more than what's on the paper, right? What does leverage look like, and how does it translate to people working in the industry? Does an artist need to have a certain amount of numbers? Do they have to have, you know, certain amount of bookings? But, you know, there's an understanding amongst artists that I just have to be dope. You know, it doesn't really translate a lot of the time on the other side. Like Thokozile said, it's not about talent, you know, but what is it about? And how can artists own that, put it in a deck, have a conversation, speak the language? But what does it look like? What does leverage look like? What does building leverage look like?
That is an excellent question. It means there's a bunch of things that are just universal, but on top of that, it will mean different things depending on what kind of music you make and who you're approaching. So you mentioned a deck. To have a deck, you would be approaching a brand and you would need to speak brand. You would be speaking a different language if you were speaking to a label services partner or if you were speaking to a major. And all of those entities, companies, would be interested in slightly different things. But let's be generic. Leverage is something that you own and you build to start off with. And the more of it you have, the better position you're putting yourself in. Like, for example, to come back to the bank analogy, right? If you're looking for, if you want to buy a house or a flat or you want to buy a property and you have saved up a sizable deposit and you've never bought a property before and you go into the bank and you show them your bank statements, you show them that you've got a big deposit saved and they look at your the last 2 years of your history and they can see, oh, okay, you've never dipped below, okay, it looks like we can trust you. That is your leverage for a loan, right? You've shown responsible behavior. Now, if you go to a brand, the first thing that they're going to do is they're going to go to your social media. And if you are on your social media flipping the bird and, you know, like mentioning, oh, you know, you went to this bank, you went to KFC and you got like something rubbish, and you say it in more fruitful language than that, then the brand's going to go, ooh, maybe not. Because you present a risk, right? So if you just think from a business perspective, put yourself in the best position where it makes it easy for someone to say yes. And if we're speaking about a major label, a couple of years ago already, actually about 10 years ago already, major labels in South Africa were no longer signing developing acts. They were signing people who already had an existing fan base. And now that band has stretched even further to include label services companies. Like they're not going to sign unless you have a certain amount of numbers. And different numbers are important to different companies. But I think I want to come back to what is generic. You will know, because you've listened, that knowing where your fans are is important. So if your fans are at a skate park, then perhaps the first brand you go to is Vans, and perhaps you've thrown a couple of events at a skate park, and perhaps you dress well or with skater shoes and in a manner that your audience connects with, and perhaps you've got some merch. So those are ideas for things in the line of what a brand would be interested in, as well as your fan base. The one thing that absolutely everybody can use is an email database or a WhatsApp database. Keep in contact with your fans because you own that data. It's important to be on social media, and this is something that I also... Sometimes artists are like, oh, I don't want to post the Apple artwork on my feed. It doesn't look nice. Can I tell you something? If, like just today, I went to Tresor's profile. If a multiple SAMA award-winning artist, and he's like top 15 in Billboard's top songwriters. If he can be posting Apple assets and Spotify assets to his feed, then so can you. It becomes important to thank the people. Don't forget where you come from. Thank the people along the journey, whether they're your fans, whether it's your manager, whether it is someone at a brand. Those things, this industry is built on relationships. And the numbers are important, but the soft relationships, the soft leverage you have, the social goodwill or the social capital, that will take you further than... those are the people that will give you the opportunities to grow your music, to grow your audience. I droned on.
No, that was great. So I was definitely Team Drake, but Kendrick said, wait. He said something that I loved. He said, I'm not in the music business. I've been in the human business. And at the end of the day, it's people who are going to be dealing with your product, your artistry. It's a relationship. It's a human thing, and we all respond positively, or most of us respond positively to kindness, to respect and whatnot. So
I interrupt you.
Yes.
Someone once said to me, and it stuck with me forever, people don't remember what you say, they remember how you make them feel. Someone else.
Yeah.
So I want to... Oh, yes, please.
Oh, I was going to say, just to piggyback off of what Wendy was saying, networking is so important. Let me tell you. I was friends with this very sweet Colombian girl called Andrea, and we used to have a networking budget, like losers. And we had like $50. And then what we would do is there used to be a jam session on Wednesday and Thursday. And then we would use our networking budget. And she would be like, well, we are here for 2 hours. And for those 2 hours, she would stand across the room and stare at me to talk to people. And I'm like, I owe so much to her, honestly, because I would not talk to a single person. Like, I'm very much an introvert at heart. I will sit in the corner and be very happy. But I think that taught me so much about, like, learning how to sell myself. Or at least, for example, there's so many times where I've just randomly had a conversation with somebody about some dumb thing, like being like, oh my word, do you know that if you 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 on the, on the mix, this is what can happen. 6 months later, that person is like, hey, remember you were talking about the mix. I have something for you to do. And I think that that's why I said to be informed about your industry, but also see where people are hanging out. Ask yourself, where are the A&Rs? Like, where are they hanging out? They're not just sitting on social media. They're getting a drink somewhere. They're going to get food somewhere. The people who are at labels, the ones who are playlisting, they're somewhere. they're hanging out somewhere.
They're actually next door. Spotify is doing a games night if you guys want to just camp outside. Sorry, yes, you were saying.
Yeah, but just networking. And I think that and to add on that, the assumption is that you always need to network up. Like, you need to find, like, the person, like, who's the head of Ditto or whatever. Guys, tables turn very quickly. There's so many of my friends and I started out just, like, runners at studios or working at different places. And then, like, 5 years later, this person is, like, head of management of something. And I think that the thing is you don't look down on your peers just because you guys are all on the same level. You build genuine relationship because you lift each other up. And I think what you also need to remember is that like 20 years from now, Jesus, I will not be here. Like, you get what I mean? That you can't now depend your entire career on me because I won't be here in 20 years. So now you've built your entire career finding Togos everywhere, but then you've neglected people who are your age, who are your peers, people also who are underneath you. It's very dangerous to put yourself in this mentality of thinking that like the only way is to network up, or the only person that's going to be able to give you opportunity is the person who is above you.
Absolutely. And also, people see that. Like, to be fair, like, you know, when you say something on social media and you don't mean it, like, people might like it, but they can see you're lying. And it's the same that when you're networking and you're only networking up, you know, people that are next to you, adjacent to you, or just below you, like, they see you and they're like, oh, okay, not good enough to have a coffee with me, but, or you're busy tomorrow, but you're seeing so-and-so. Okay. It'll come back to you. So
It's a human business, guys. You know, I want to take you out of the label space for a moment, Thokozile. I want you to tell me a little bit about Wholesome Baddie and how it exists in the context of everything you've experienced. I mean, you're currently consulting with Empire Africa. Tell me about, because I mean, I've got this incredible quote on my wallpaper, and I do this every time we have this conversation. Create the things you wish existed, right? Tell me about Wholesome Baddie.
The name was a joke. So like, like if we could just start there. Like, when I was in school, I would always hear like, "Oh, Toko, you're so wholesome," and it used to stress me out. Like, like I'd be like, of all the words that you can use to describe me, wholesome is like what, oatmeal? Like, what do you mean? Like, so like dry. And then like one day I was just like, no, I'm a baddie. And then someone was like, yeah, you're a wholesome baddie. But yeah, that's. But the idea of it is that I've always kind of been left. I've just, in general, I'm a jazz kid. I love jazz. I went to school for jazz. I also learned how to engineer. Like I've just always been left. And I felt like there was no space for people like me who genuinely wanted to do this music thing, but I'm not really trying to be at the studio at 3 a.m. like with you, sir. Like, truthfully, I just want to make my music and I want to go home and I want different opportunities for myself. And I think it can get really frustrating if you don't do a particular dance within music, because there is a dance, 100%. And I think that I got kind of exhausted of doing that because it either didn't align with where I saw myself morally, or I was just like, I could be doing other things with my life. And so I think I didn't. So let me backtrack. I've always been a creative. Like I said, I started out making my own music. Actually, that's how I ended up meeting like Kenzera and all of that. Like I was getting played on the radio. And then when I moved back to South Africa, the industry doesn't have as many opportunities as what it was in LA. So I went from earning a very decent living in LA to being here to be like, how do I figure myself out? So I didn't plan to get onto the business side of music. That just kind of happened because, again, I'm too bougie to be broke. Yeah. So, like, that's how I ended up at Universal, and I made that choice. And I think I'm trying to think of how to say this. When I was working in corporate music, I knew that it wasn't for me. I don't believe that that's for everyone. I think that there are definitely people who are called to be in corporate, and they have an assignment and they have a calling to do that. It was not for me. And I think that after doing that dance for about 3.5 years, I was like, this doesn't align with what I want people to know me for, and the places and the environments that I want to create. But also, I would not have known that if I wasn't there as well, truthfully. And this is not to shame anyone or anything. Like, again, it just didn't align with where I wanted to be with my life. And I think that after doing that, I asked myself, like, what is it that I actually enjoy doing? What is the passion for music that I actually have? And it's to do weird things, like truthfully. And I think that the problem is that there's not enough people who believe in taking the chance, like similar to what Wendy was saying now, to take the chance and being like, this kid is weird, but I like it. Like, how do we make this work? And it's true, there's no artist development anymore. The people who are doing artist development are the managers or individual agencies. There's nobody doing artist development. And I think that that's something that I was very passionate about, and just wanting to do campaigns, which I knew that on a corporate level, they wouldn't want to do because maybe it would be a little bit risky. But I was like, I don't belong to nobody. So I can do this, like, you know, and finding people who agree with that. Or again, seeing that you see somebody and you're like, I can see where this person is going. And I know the people who can put them in that place. And I enjoy doing that. Like, I'm just like, ooh, you know, I have a makeup artist for you. I have this person for you. And just connecting people together to get them with where they want to be. And I think the reason is because, again, when my dean sat me down that day, she said to me, pay it forward. If you always pay it forward, people will always pay it forward for you. And I think that that's just something that I've created for myself. And that's the environment that I've also wanted to create for other people. Like, there's many times where I've done things for people and I've gotten not a thank you. You know who you are. You know, it sucks. But then there's many times where I've been sitting at home and somebody has called me and asked me to do something. And I think that I've been blessed enough to be in rooms that a lot of people didn't think I was going to be in, because I've paid it forward for other people, and people have watched that. And people have been like, okay, I can trust Togo to do this because I've seen her in other spaces. And I think that that's ultimately what wholesome baddie is. Like, you're bad, but you're also wholesome.
Let's go. My final question for you, Wendy. Thank you, Togo. As I said, I mean, you've wore multiple hats in the industry over the last 2 decades, experienced so much, right, from various viewpoints. I'm curious, is there something still within the music industry that you still want to experience, that you still feel like you need to experience, you know, a certain viewpoint, a certain capacity, a certain job title, this being the last thing you want to do before you start a wholesome baddie?
Yes, there is something that I want to see, but like kind of not for me. Well, for me, selfishly, but I want to see the world fucking take Africa seriously. You know, like we've got such amazing music here. Like not just in South Africa, but yes, definitely South Africa, but across the continent. You know, I think what I want is for us to not think, oh my God, Paris is all that. No, fucking go to Ghana, go to Kenya, you know. You know, I've got so much love for our continent. And that comes back to the people and the creativity and, like, honestly, what we have here. If you watch the news, or heaven forbid you go on Twitter, I'm not ever going to call it X. You know, you'd swear that this place is crumbling and on fire half the time. But if I go into Spar, you know, if I go into Checkers or wherever, like, everybody is friendly, smiles, says like, oh, have a nice day, you know, like, damn. It's like that over most of our whole continent, which is really, really big, and, you know, much bigger than people see on the maps. I'd love for the world to just really experience and stop saying on TV, oh, you're going to Africa. Where the fuck in Africa? Where in Africa are you going? Because it matters. So that's something selfishly that I want to see for us. I want to see people in Joburg jumping up and down to Gengatone, because I love it. It is so good. It's like, it's Kenyan pop music, but it's got hip hop in it, and it's got a little bit of reggae, or like reggaeton. And also, I'm glossing over it because I'm not from there, you know, because I know I I think that you can enjoy music without having to be able to speak the language in it, and like still enjoy it authentically. And I want people, first of all, on the continent and internationally, to understand that that is true. You can really feel music. You don't have to understand what's being said in it, but you can enjoy it. And yeah, so that's the first thing that I want. I think that my second wish is that, genie in a bottle, I get 3 wishes, is that the artists themselves, African artists, South African artists, help each other, because
Yes.
like you don't get to the top without the help of all of those that go before you. So yeah, I really want to see. So if a South African artist plays overseas at a festival in Belgium, because like let's face it, okay, like Europe and the US and the UK, they've got the money, they've got like the strong currencies, but then I want them to set such a good example when they're there that they can bring other artists with them, and that only happens, if you guys are all kind to each other and help lift each other up. God, we both are so damn wholesome.
Thank you so much, Wendy. Guys, make some noise. Okay, so we're going to open it to the floor for 3 or 4 questions. We'll see. Here's the mic. So just put your hand out. There's a hand at the front. Dibs.
Hello, I'm Perseverance, also known as Losh. And a week ago, I took up an exciting role as Ferdy's manager. Where's Ferdy? She's an incredible, hardworking person. So in the last week since we started, we've been strategizing, right? So researching on the music business, and you guys shared a lot of insights. But one thing that we are trying to figure out is how important is having capital and investing in yourself to get those return on investments. And if you are an independent artist with no income, how do you make it work, accompanying with everything else, the networking and everything that you guys shared tonight?
Both of us? Yeah. Okay, so how you make it work? Look, you're working in the coolest industry ever. It's the music industry. It's not the easiest industry. You're going to work harder than anybody else. Because I know that it sounds counterintuitive, but I always encourage my artists to have a side gig, a side job that pays a regular income, because the stink of desperation is real. And the minute you have that, it comes through in your music, and you don't want that, because then you'll make something, you'll spend money on it, and you'll end up hating it and end up hating yourself, and that's not what you want for yourself. It's not what you want for your fans. So figure out a way, and I mean, it's a Venn diagram of like, what can you bear doing, what are you good at, and what makes money, And then you use that to fund what you love. And what you love, for sure, the recording costs, networking like this, it costs some money, but marketing also costs money, and you have to put money in marketing. Whether that is paying for a MailChimp subscription, you actually don't need to. It's free. There's so many free tools online. Literally, all you have to do is just keep on pushing, put a little bit of budget behind something. There's one tip that I can give you: do not spend money on advertising your release on Facebook or Instagram or any digital advertising in the first week, because your biggest fans are going to be streaming it organically anyway. Why would you pay for those clicks? Watch your streams. What the DSPs give excellent back-end dashboards now. So the minute you see, oh no, it's starting to, then you post a bit on social media and you start scheduling your ad. And the other thing, actually, no, let me stop talking.
No, continue.
You've got to put money in, right? But you also have to, just like you would be on stage, you've got to put yourself out there all the time, and that means on social media as well. Because the biggest thing that I see is artists not posting enough. You're not. and it's not a competition, but online it is a competition for eyeballs, right? So you are not in competition for eyeballs with every other South African musician online. You're not in competition with every other musician around the world online. You're in competition with every other influencer, every other YouTuber. You're in competition with anybody who has a significant audience. So best you be posting all of the time, as much as you can handle, right? Do content pillars like any other business. And post as much as you can while still staying sane, because that's what the business part requires.
Everything Wendy said. And I think, I think, again, it's a business. You're not going to make money by spending no money. That's just a reality of life. And I think, I would, like she said, get a job. I think that, I don't know why here everybody is like, nobody wants to be seen working at a coffee shop, guys. Like, people have like ads on TVs working at a coffee shop. Like, this is life. You get a job to fund what you actually want to do. It's just what everybody does. And again, it also stops you from being at a point of desperation that you find yourself in something that you're struggling 10 years to get out of just because you wanted like 50K. It's not worth it. If you just had a job, you would have had that 50K. Yes, granted, you'd have to manage your time better, but is that not a better compromise than, having freedom, but now you're stuck in like a 5-10 year contract that you don't know how to manage? And I think, like Wendy said, spending money on your marketing, spending money on marketing yourself, building your brand. Like, again, who do you want to present yourself to the world as? That's very important. So I think that if you're struggling to identify where you fit in, how am I supposed to help you? Like, really? And I think it's taking the time to troubleshoot and figure that out. If you it's a dumb example, but people always used to talk about how the way that Lady Gaga dressed, she would dress everywhere. She would go to the grocery store dressed like that. She would go everywhere because she was so committed to, this is how I want people to see me. And it's important. Like, I would invest in, and again, what are the things that are important, similar to what I was saying in the beginning. So if you know that you want to be known for phenomenal production, invest in your production. How are you going to invest in your production? You need the resources to be able to invest in your production. If the look is the most important part of it, you're investing money into the look. You don't have to do a blanket thing that everyone is doing. But again, that goes back into having direction about how you want to position yourself for everyone.
Okay, hello everyone. I'm Thokozile, and I'm an aspiring musician. I was actually speaking to Blessing earlier, and I was gagged when you said everyone says they want to be Beyonce, because I used those words verbatim, literally. So my question is more in terms of, you were touching on the African continent, and I think I'm curious about building connections within alternative musical cultures throughout Africa. Because oftentimes I feel as if there's a lack of interconnectedness, like throughout the continent, in terms of alternative music in general. So just from your perspective, how would you approach fostering those connections, building on them, and actually bringing us closer together? Because they are there.
DM people. It's literally that simple. There are so many times where I've tagged somebody or like a brand or a musician or I've just gone somewhere. Sometimes I'll just be in Kenya, I'll be like, ooh, where are all the cool people at? And I'll go there and then just start talking to people. But nothing is going to happen if you don't open your mouth. And granted, let's say of the 10 people that you message, 4 might ignore you, but 6 will respond. You just make connection. Like, I think the thing is like, with the continent, for example, there's the Alte scene in Ghana and Nigeria. There's an alternative scene in Kenya. See what's going on. See, and you'll find that if you genuinely engage people, in a honest way, they'll respond. Like, not everybody is an asshole. You get it, like, not everybody is going to be like, why are you talking to me? And I think it's just important to humble yourself and be like, hi, I think you're really cool. How did you do this? I can guarantee you at least 5 people of the 10 that you respond will message you back.
I just want to say, I was tweeting with Rhapsody yesterday about playing a touch-up.
Mate.
So cross fingers one day.
Mate.
Okay, I'm done. No, just, yeah. So that's
Yeah, you know, everything you said. DM, just DM people. And also, if you don't know what music is in the alternative space, then you've got the tools to that literally in your Apple or your Spotify account. You know, Google alternative music Kenya, alternative music West Africa, and you'll find genres like Alte. I mean, East Africa, Kenya, has had a really, really vibrant alternative scene for a long time already. And I mean, so do we here, right? The biggest question anyone ever needs to ask is, what is alternative? Because there is no real genre of alternative. It is the left of center of what is pop there, right? So, yeah, I mean, alternative can be so many things. Your direction is alternative to something that is a genre. So find that in whichever space there is online. You know, if like to be fair, like your look tonight is like pretty.
It's giving Q.
Yeah. Like, I was listening to the record today, Anderson .Paak and Silk and Soul or something like, I don't know. Like you, like. Yeah, there is Tane, thank you. You look like you know, like you could whip out the mic and do like, you know, deep cut any minute now. So find whoever that is, you know, across the rest of the continent. I mean, we have some great artists here in South Africa. So yeah, start with, it's a marathon, not a sprint. You know, the first couple of people you're going to DM, like maybe you're lucky and they reply, maybe they don't. I don't know, whatever, move on, keep trying.
We have all heard a lot of no's, trust and believe.
Yeah.
I just keep going. You will know my name. Like you just have to keep going.
I was asked to say it on the mic again. So I was tweeting with Rhapsody yesterday. Someone tagged me because she's coming to South Africa for something on the 18th of July, and someone asked her what else she's doing. And then she said, oh, she'll see she steps in for an open mic or something chilled. And then someone tagged me, and I was like, oh, hey, Rhapsody, we do this. I sent her a photo of all you guys individually, and she was like, oh, this looks great. Unfortunately, I won't be around this time, but maybe my next visit, I'd love to. Thanks for letting me know. So, yeah, let's do that. Yes, do we have any more questions?
Hi, guys. So I think, you know, a lot of people here can see kind of how far you've made it, how much you've done. And I think, you know, a lot of what we do as artists is learn from our mistakes, but preferably learn from other people's mistakes. So I think I would like to hear, what are the mistakes that you've made or that you think are commonly made that you hope that people can avoid falling into?
In my 20s, I was arrogant. And I thought I knew everything, and I was kind of like a bit of a, I don't know, it was like a Dunning-Kruger test. You know, like you think you know everything, and then the more you learn, the more you realize, oh shit, I don't know everything. And I think the people who don't have that recognition that, oh, I don't know everything, they get worked out, you know. They, at some point you need to have well, I mean, you guys have had that realization because you're here tonight, right? So, like, well done and congrats to you. I think no matter how much you know, you will always be humbled, in my case, especially by publishing.
No one understands publishing, guys, like, honestly.
The music industry is so diverse, so vast. As artists, your streams of income, well, not streams, but I mean, like, if your income is made up as a pie, this career of being an artist can be made up of so many different sections of pie. It is unreal. And to go back to what Toga was saying earlier, you know, just like what Houdin said, like she does vocal coaching. I mean, many people in this room are a little bit older already. There is someone that is 18 or 19 who wants to be able to sing in a home language or wants to be able to know how to use a mic properly. I mean, can you teach them? When I was in my 20s and working in corporate, I was speaking to someone in promo and they said they don't really save, they don't make enough money to save. You always make enough money to save. You know, whatever you're making, what don't you need? What can you cut out? And then save that bit. In your case, an artist, that's what you then spend marketing. So just be aware, kind of self-regulate as well. Are you making excuses for anything? Are you procrastinating? Why are you procrastinating? Are you making things harder for yourself than they could be? Those are things that I think, you know, that's the best advice that I can give.
I think a mistake that I made when I was in my early 20s is that I was just too much of a perfectionist. It's really not that deep. Like, honestly, I swear, guys, you know, I would be at Apple and you're listening to 800 songs. And of those 800 songs, at least 300 of them are somebody who's done it in their bedroom with their mother screaming in the back. And they had the confidence to send that song to submit to get playlisted. And then I think that was a very humbling experience to be like, this person is just at the point where they're like, bro, this music just needs to get out. Like, this just needs to come out. And I think that you need to get to that level of hunger where you're like, this is not perfect, but I'd like just start. I mean, I feel like you see this on social media all the time where people are just like, just do something. Like, do it. Obviously with intention, but just do it and put it out. I think that there's a lot of opportunities that I probably missed because I felt like I wasn't ready, but I was. Truthfully, like I genuinely was. And like I do believe that like God and life is gracious enough to present an opportunity to you again, but it's never in the same way. And so I think I would probably say that I wish that sometimes I would have just rather tried. And if it ended badly, be like, well, damn, than not have tried at all, basically.
Yeah. Hi guys. My name is Lwazi. I've kind of like rebranded myself in terms of like my artist name recently. I mean, I was going by another alias, so now I'm SABC6. And yeah. What's up? I'm SABC6, so right now I want to find out how do I the people that have known me with that alias, how do I create the awareness again, like where they kind of tap into the new music and reintroduce them to myself, and also just like in terms of any advice in terms of getting the music to radio, movies, series, games. Which approach should one take when they want to get their music in those platforms so that to generate money? Yeah.
If you don't get your answer, come to normal.com/consultancy. So, because sometimes there's a name change and a rebrand. So if you're changing the name, but the rebrand is not active within the music itself, you're still doing the old music. That's a name change. You know, yeah, so if they don't give you the answer, there's some guys that normal.
Good, yeah, because you're gonna need help. Changing your name, rebranding is fine. I mean, you just go and you change a tag and, you know, you start posting as your new name. But then you're effectively starting from zero. When you're talking about the actual music, your previous music, your catalog that is on DSPs, your music that, you know, maybe you've registered for publishing, that becomes an administrative job. Guys, there's way more administration in the music industry than anybody tells you about. and stay on top of it because that's where the till is at. So if you make a spelling error, your publishing royalties might land up in undoc. So you want to make sure that your spreadsheets and that's the one place where you can be a perfectionist, I suggest, with your admin. The technical answer to what you're asking is to reach out to your distributor via support, which might take a while, but it's fine. Basically, you've got to jump through a bunch of hoops. You've got to re-deliver all of your music with your new name and then take down your previous music. What you can do, hopefully, is if you are via a distributor and all your music is through the same platform, you can ask them to send a metadata update to create a new artist profile have your name. Check that your name doesn't already exist. I doubt that it does, but just in case, for everybody in the room, make sure that the name doesn't exist. Then ask your distributor to create a profile with that name as a new artist. And then ask them to deliver a metadata update to that artist. And once that's done, maybe leave it for about a week, 2 weeks to be safe. Take down the old music. That's the way to get it done on streaming platforms. And then you've got to think about every single touch point where your music is at, every single thing you've done for that back catalog. So registered for publishing, reach out to your publisher, reach out to Samro, and follow up to make sure that it's been done, and Capasso, every single point where the administration of your music has your previous catalog name. And then movies in sync and other opportunities, that all comes with being prepared. Again, administration. When you have a song that is finished and mastered and ready, make sure that you also have the instrumental version and the separates and everything neatly filed in a folder. Don't call it mix_01. Give it your artist name, --song title, _instrumental, or _ master or radio edit or whatever it is, all the different versions, as well as the stems, and then shop it out. Reach out to the people at brands that you know. Basically, have your elevator pitch absolutely ready. The advertising world and the movie world, they want to know things like what mood it is, what kind of scene it would fit, what is the vibe, what is the temperature, make it easy for them. I think one of the things that I'm always advocating for is when you are asking something of someone else, make it as easy as you can for them to say yes. Don't send them like a 20-page document because no one got time for that. Short, sharp, to the point, and be persistent. I think that's probably the best information I can give you. Hope you come right.
Sorry, what was the reason that you changed the name?
Say it again.
It fits with the style of music that I make, so I was more rapping on the English side, underground. So I kind of came back home, with more white door influence. And I guess the kids in the village in Eastern Cape, I was having all that underground rap. They said they can't hear me. You know what I mean? So it made sense. I'm like, I need them to also hear me. So the switch up was also like personal, and also they comment that, yeah, the English thing is just a lot of words.
I would just go very hard, truthfully, and just go big. So that people don't even ask why you changed your name. That whatever you're putting out there answers the question for them. And then they'll backtrack and be like, oh my gosh, he was whoever, your previous name was. I think the beautiful thing about being a creative is that you can reinvent yourself all the time. Like, nobody is going to be like, why are you doing this? I think it's just the level of commitment that you have to the new version of yourself. That is what is going to sell that version of you.
And that is...
Yeah. Sorry. Oh. Just if you had like 10 monthly listeners, then honestly it's not worth it because it is heavy on admin. Like, change your name. Just start from... I'm sorry, but it's the truth. It's the truth. It's like, Spotify want to pay a lower rate if you haven't made 1,000 streams. Yeah. So like you can change, you can pivot, and even if you don't change your name, just pivot anyway. I promise you, people aren't thinking that hard about it.
Throw a party, coming out party. That's going to be very impactful. But that is the show. Make some noise for our incredible panelists. Let's touch base. This is what this is about. These sorts of conversations. We wind down. It's a midweek thing, so everybody's here, present. Also, we've got a nice dry bar situation. So everybody's present because you have to be. But yeah, thank you so much, guys. So much. So grateful for your time, your expertise, your experiences are helping us figure out how to do better on our side. So thank you so much. I love South African alternative music, especially when tonight is no different. We just had our Let's Touch Base conversation. We're going to move to that place where there's a lot of people there who are going to need to move at some point. But we're going to go back and bring it back to why we do this. Back at Baba Black Sheep, we were doing live music every Wednesday until they started having noise complaints. And now we're here at Mama Gashaga and Friends, and we're happy to be here. We're cute. The pillars are great. The cakes are great. When you get to the bar, please tip. Homies are doing an incredible job. Stick around. We're going to do a quick switch up of the room. We're going to move to that side, find a nice position, find a nice viewpoint, and we're going to bring you our first act of the evening. Stick around. This is your weekly touch-up, week 106, and welcome home.